And welcome to a meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach held June 3rd, 2025 at 7 p.m. We'll have a roll call. Councilmember Bendo.
Present.
Councilmember Lester. Here. Councilmember Reinhardt.
Here.
Vice President Fiamora.
Present.
President Finn.
Present.
Let the record indicate the presence of City Manager Dan Creighton and Deputy Corporation Counsel Joe Lupo will now have a salute to the flag.
I'd like to ask Sean O'Neill from the CSEA to lead us in the pledge, please. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay, what's everybody here for? Welcome to our June meeting, our first June meeting, and Dan's going to lead off with the city manager's report.
All right, so we have a pretty long agenda for tonight. So good evening, thank you everybody for being here. I want to start out by thanking our police department, CSEA workers for the work they did in deterring an unauthorized gathering on the beach this past Friday. As everyone knows, we have had numerous instances over the past several years where these gatherings get out of control, resulting in violence, our beach getting trashed, and disrespect for our first responders and residents. Last year, we had nearly 3,000 individuals on the beach, and the evening ended with a 15-year-old being shot and 2 people being arrested on gun charges. We came up with a plan last year to stop these gatherings, and our police department, along with their partners in the city, state, county, and MTA police, executed that plan perfectly. They monitor social media, are in close contact with schools, and when they received confirmation that several school districts were planning on coming here again, they took the necessary steps to ensure that we will not have a repeat of last year's events. This included physically sealing off beach entrances, which we never want to do, but know is a vital component of our deterrent plan. Our primary focus is and will always be public safety. Again, thank you to our police department, CSA workers, the law enforcement partners, and the rest of the city workforce for a successful operation and for keeping our residents safe. We're not taking a victory lap, though, yet. Until the beach is up and running 7 days a week on June 19th, we remain in a period of vulnerability. The weather is warming and schools are winding down. We want our residents to know we fully anticipate additional attempts to hold these types of gatherings over the next 2 weeks. But we will continue to remain vigilant, and we hope our residents will remain understanding should we have to enact these measures again in the interest of all of our safety. We're opening up full-time nearly a week early this year to narrow the window of vulnerability, and are looking at additional ways we can push up the season. But for now, we are doing everything in our power to let it be known that these types of gatherings are not welcome here, and we'll continue to try to stop them. Moving on to types of gatherings we do want to take place here. This past Saturday was the second annual Michael Berube Sunset Color Run. Hundreds showed up to run towards hope and raise awareness about the importance of mental health. This is a profoundly important issue, and we think Neela and her family, 2 daughters, we thank them for having the strength and courage to hold this event in honor of Michael. Arts in the Plaza's Friday night concert is this Friday from 5 to 9 p.m. in Kennedy Plaza. President Finn's favorite half step will be the featured act. All are welcome to shop local art vendors and enjoy the live music. Thank you to the Arts in the Plaza for putting this event on. Also next Saturday, June 14th, we ask that you please join the city and the Joint Veterans Organizations for our annual Flag Day ceremony. The ceremony will take place at 1:30 p.m. in Veterans Park at the Recreation Complex. And last but not least, the City Clerk's Office would like to remind everyone that it will have early hours next Wednesday, the 11th, opening at 7 a.m. for those wishing to purchase residential parking passes. They will also be open late that same day till 7 p.m. on Wednesday, opening on 7 p.m. Wednesday the 25th for the same purpose. So since we have a full agenda, I'll conclude with that and turn it over to Brendan for the agenda.
And we're also going to be open on the 17th, also late.
What's that?
We'll also be open late on the 17th as well.
Sorry. Yep.
That's okay.
17th will also be open late. Thank you, Dave, for correcting me. Love it.
All right, thank you, Dan. And I think in the interest of brevity, let's keep moving forward.
All right.
Okay, our first item this evening is a public hearing for an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding building code.
Okay, so this is, I think, Danielle's favorite agenda item. This item makes amendments to the Code of Ordinances that relates to the recently created Planning Board. We always knew when we were standing up this board that it would be a work in progress. It is a new board that we enacted, and we need to make it better over time. The first change now is the board's purview as it relates to non-residential uses or structures, so that new businesses taking over unmodified existing facilities do not need to go before the board. Second modification pertains to the board only in its capacity as the Architectural Review Board, meaning its functional oversight over the exterior aesthetic of the facility. It clarifies the process for contesting a decision by the Architectural Review Board so that they may make regarding a facility's proposed aesthetic qualities, and brings consistency to the process between the city's code and the general city law. I have Scott Kemmons, Joe Lupo, and Dave here if you have any additional questions.
Okay. Let's start with the council with questions. John? Roy?
I'm not sure. Scott, am I asking you the questions? Or?
Well, ask the question, I'll tell you.
Okay. Just one question. On the site plan for the entire lot shall be approved by the planning board in conjunction with the following. And then it says enlargement of a structure with 3 or more dwelling units by 25% in gross square footage. Is there any time period, or can somebody enlarge a structure by 25% and the next, as soon as that's done, enlarge it again by 25%, and as soon as that's done, enlarge it again?
So just, Scott, you can answer that, but this is not for the item tonight. This is just the changes. That's already in the code. Okay.
That's why I'm asking.
Right. Presently, it would be on each application.
So there's no time limit. As soon as one is done, the next one, because if it's more than 25%, then it has to go in front of the planning board.
Correct.
But if you do it in increments, even if it's only 1 day apart, it doesn't have to go?
Well, there is nothing in the code, Counselor.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'll intervene. So I see your point. You're thinking, if I understand you correctly, that somebody could increase it by 24%, wait a month, then increase it by another 24%. But with the planning board, it's a building, is this on?
It's on.
It's a building permit application. So once the building permit goes in at 24%, inspections have to be done, right, to show that that project is then finalized. If they want to come back now and increase it another 24%, now at that point, I believe that we're going to start getting like variance and density and setback issues. So at some point, they're going to have to go to the zoning board. But the reason why we did it with structures with 3 dwelling units or more is because the goal of the planning board was really to have oversight, appropriate oversight over developments, but not burden the average 1 and 2 family residents.
I understand that. I just was looking at it, and we're changing, this, and it seems that this is a loophole that really would easily be amended and say within a 1-year period or 2-year period or something like that. I just was curious if I was reading it right, and it seems I am reading it right.
You are.
Viewing it through that lens, I agree with you. But the thing is, let's say it's a 3-family home, and they're going to increase it by,
No,
by
it's
20,
more, 3 or more.
3 or more, and they're going to
So it can
increase
be a
it.
6. I'm sorry.
And let me also just say, we are not changing this right now. That is what's already in the code. That is not one of the pieces that are being changed in this.
I understand, but we are changing the code, and that's why I brought it up.
Sure.
Okay?
At some point, that multi-dwelling unit would then be likely seeking additional units, would need additional parking, which would trigger variances. However, it is a great catch, and it is something that we can close that loophole.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Scott, I don't know if you need to be here. I got just a quick question, or maybe, so in this, we're removing the findings of fact process, which is basically sort of an appeal process. I'm just wondering, what is the logic behind removing that?
So if you read that section in its totality, the only person that can appeal a decision is an applicant. So if the Architectural Review Board denies an application from, let's say, a developer who wants to buy up a whole bunch of 1- and 2-family homes, right? And then that gets denied. All this allows them to do currently is then get a second bite at the apple. It requests a finding of fact, so then they could dispute the finding of fact and ask the Architectural Review Board to then re-review the application.
Right.
So in that instance, anybody who's denied would then pretty much, they're entitled to a second bite at the apple. Just like the planning board and the zoning board, once they make a decision, that decision is final. And if you believe that their decision is arbitrary and capricious or illegal, then the only recourse is in Article 78. And we wanted to make that consistent with all of our boards because all these boards have final decision-making authority and are subject to open meetings law.
Okay, thank you.
Questions?
No, in a discussion with Dan earlier, you talked about having some safeguards against maybe impropriety going forward. If you could just expand on that a little bit with this.
So, Joe, you right with you doing this? I have to ask legal if it's all right with that.
I'll do my best. So with respect to any impropriety, all of our boards, our zoning board, our planning board, our architectural review board, because they have final decision-making authority, they're independent boards. So they are separate and distinct from the city. Not from the city, I'm sorry, from the city's influence. So they have certain criteria that are either set out in general municipal law or general city law or our code and charter. And they have to strictly adhere to those rules, regardless of, you know, who the city manager is, who the corporation council is, and who's in power, you know, politically.
Great, thank you.
So, Mike, just to answer your question, I trust myself. I don't know if I trust every future city manager that will be.
And I appreciate that, thank you.
Well, I mean, that was the point of the planning board, because for the last how many years, there's been no oversight on those sized construction projects, and we all pay the price. So the point is, yeah, your loophole, I think that probably has to be tightened up, but the fact is, we had to do this ordinance because to make this planning board work more effectively.
100%, and also, you know, when the planning board was created and the responsibility of the architectural review board was then designated to the planning board, we did say, you know, listen, this is our first time doing this. We think that we thought of mostly everything, but we're going to find some loopholes. I'm sure we made a mistake here or there or missed something. And to Mr. Lester's point, we missed something, and we will fix it.
Okay, questions, comments from the public? I thought you might have one. Or two. Welcome back.
Hi, gentlemen. So I had a one-off conversation with Lupo, so just kind of want to have other people, as yourselves and the public, kind of be involved in that. So, you know, this may just be redundant for us.
Okay.
So I wanted others to know, why is this section of 7256 being removed? What's the benefit?
So the benefit, as I said, is it makes the architectural review board or the planning board acting in its capacity of the architectural review. Once they make their decision, it's final. The applicant doesn't have the right to then say, hey, I want you to look at it again because I disagree with it. The applicant only has the right to say, I think what you did was arbitrary and capricious and thereby not consistent with New York State law, so therefore I'm going to file an Article 78, which is the same process that a planning board appeal or a zoning board appeal would need to take.
In addition to that, I had asked whom decides that and based on what criteria?
Meaning, I'm sorry, who decides what? I don't recall.
Yeah, you had shared with me the body that decides what goes to the architectural board
Yes.
happens to be Scott, the head of the buildings department. So he would choose what applicants go to, whether it's the architectural board or the planning board, based on what you had told me last.
Yes, so it's not an arbitrary decision, though. It's not like he has subjectivity to say that this goes to the planning board versus the zoning board. If something requires a variance, whether, you know, let's say the side yard setback, they need 4 feet on one side, but this building only, if they build it, it's only going to have 3 feet. That has to be denied on the application has to be denied on the grounds that it violates the zoning code. So because it violates the zoning code, only the zoning board could grant a variance to the zoning code. But then there are other things. So let's just say that same building with the 3-foot setback, let's just say it's a new building and they want it to be mixed use, where it's a commercial and a residential. Well, the mixed use aspect of it has to be reviewed by the planning board, but they still need that variance. So that applicant has to go to the planning board and the zoning board.
You did also share with me the architectural board
Yes.
is the planning board. So it's the same body of people that are on the planning board basically wear two hats. So
Yes.
based on what is given to them will be certain criteria.
Correct.
And can you just divulge, like you did last, what that criteria kind of
Sure.
fell under for the architectural board?
So, for lack of a better term or a better phrase, the way that I put it for the architectural review board is it pretty? Meaning, does the, Long Beach isn't like Levittown, and I grew up in Levittown, so I don't feel bad saying this, but every home was cookie cutter. It was the same basic Levitt Cape. We don't want Long Beach to be the same Levitt Cape. But, you know what, if you have certain historic properties in one area and somebody wants to build, some neon green, monstrosity that is very modern and doesn't fit with that area, that doesn't work either. So we don't want things to be too similar in the sense that they're cookie cutter or obscene or obnoxiously different either. So that's really the goal of the architectural review board.
And then a lot of what's crossed out is, to your point, the finding of facts. And that was something that I brought up to you.
Yes.
When the finding of facts is going to be issued to the applicant because it's no longer stated in the revision of this now newly updated article.
Yeah, so the architectural review board, the planning board, just like our meeting now, they are live streamed. And with respect to issuing a finding of facts, we have to issue a finding of facts for the planning board or the zoning board if and when an applicant files an Article 78, they call it an Article 78 petition. We have to file a respondent petition or a response to that petition. At that time, we then file our finding of facts. So basically, just to be consistent across all three boards, because we want the process and rules to be as consistent as possible, because we're all human, so we don't want to make mistakes, right? So if somebody, has an issue with an architectural review board decision, instead of them just asking, hey, we want you to look at this again, and then 15 days later, we have to make sure we have a transcript, to make sure we have all of our evidence intact, and then we're rushing, and then the burden's on us, just for the same board to review the same application and give the same answer, we're saying no. Once the board votes, that's it. We have the same 62 days, once you file, I'm sorry, not 62 days. We have the same time frame once you file your Article 78 to file our finding of facts and respond just like in any other scenario.
And you had shared to me that this is for residents, homeowners, as well as investors.
Well, I didn't say it was for investors, meaning that, we're singling out residents, homeowners, or investors. What I mean is that.
But it's not just to one set of individuals.
Correct.
So
Correct.
as I voiced concern with certain, people that are constructing to particular individuals, they're kind of bending the rules when they can in their favor. At the end of the day, as a resident, as well as my neighbors, we're concerned that there's not going to be any loopholes that they're going to be able to kind of stretch the law in their favor, because that has happened, unfortunately, in the past.
And that's part of the reason why we want to close this loophole, so that they don't have the ability to go to someone else and possibly change the answer. The answer's set. They could file an Article 78 and, and go to a law body to make a decision.
If it happens to be a resident, though, just saying, for example, then an Article 78 is in upwards to $30,000 as a start, give or take, where it's kind of taking away another appeal process prior to that.
I understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
With respect to the Article 78 being $30,000, it definitely could be. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending upon the context of it.
It's usually
But-
the start.
But the one thing that I will say is, even if that resident gets denied by the Architectural Review Board, right, they're still asking the Architectural Review Board to take another look at the exact same application that it denied for the reasons that it has stated. So it's a second bite at the apple. So the only people that benefit by the way the law is written before this removal are people that have been denied and are just trying to avoid, complying with what an independent body already decided. So it's not really meant to, to hinder residents, because I think in our discussions I've also told you that the goal ultimately of the Architectural Review Board is getting to yes, in the sense that that's not where most projects will fall or fail. It's going to be the zoning board or the planning board, because those are the large products that are actually controversial. If, somebody wants to purchase a lot and build a single-family home that's completely in compliance with, the zoning code and doesn't trigger any of the planning requirements, they're probably not going to, paint their house neon green.
You had mentioned that subdivisions won't necessarily be going to this body or this.
So actually subdivisions will be going to the planning board, but in their capacity as a planning board,
Not the architectural
not
review.
architectural review.
Okay. Now, will there be any update as far as for the planning board that it states that?
And I'm
For-
sorry?
For multifamilies as well as subdivisions, will that be updated in the ordinance as far as the planning board getting that? Because there's no.
It's already in there.
That's already there.
Oh, okay,
It's number 5 in section 7-49.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate your questions. Yes?
James Hodge, 95 East Fulton Street here in our great city. Good to see you, Council. Lupo, you talked about sometimes there's some loopholes that we forget. And we're speaking about this planning board, right?
Yep.
Planning board. So the planning board has they make a lot of major decisions that affect our whole city and that will impact our whole city. And we speak about everyone being included and all of that. How many African Americans sit on the Planning Advisory Board?
I don't believe any, Mr. Hodge.
Oh, none. Oh, it's a new board, and it's none. But we're talking about loopholes. So I would be wrong as a community representative if I don't come and tell you that's a loophole. It's not my time. He's talking.
May I just, we actually asked one person, and they didn't want to be on.
Okay, you ask one person, do you have any? That's the point. Just because you ask somebody and they don't want to be on, you don't have nobody. The point is, there's no one. Thank you.
First off, I just want to say, when you say loophole and I smirk, it's because my last name.
I got you.
All right.
I think he meant it that way.
I don't know who exactly applied. I wasn't a part of the review process. I'm the attorney to the board. I can't answer that question.
All right. Well, listen, a lot of times we say who applied and this board don't have nothing to do with this and this board. We know it do. I've been in Long Beach for 48 years. I've been coming here since 14. A lot of the boards get appointed because they know this one and know that one, not just because you're qualified. But I say, just like I spoke last council meeting, there's a lot of boards like this board. This board will have a major impact on what takes place in one of the areas that has been gentrified twice already. The majority work that this board will have to do is with the whole bayfront that's coming in, that the city will get hundreds of millions of dollars because of CDBG and because of, let's say, urban renewal. Let's say it's a BOA area, it's contaminated area, so to remediate the land. And so what I'm saying is that when you diversify, you have different perspectives. You have different people at the table, and everyone has a say-so, and when you are only getting ideas from one segment of the community or one set group, then that means that it's not a true, thorough, thought-out decision. I talked a couple of weeks ago at the last meeting, I said that there's only been 5 black police officers. I know we're talking about the planning board, but it's a continuous thing that, well, we tried. I'm just saying try more. Because when you start developing, will that be like when all of the people got kicked off on Harrison Street, that was gentrified, all of those black families were kicked out, and then when they went to build the wall bounds, all of those families and some of my friends got kicked out. So what I'm saying is it may not be you, Lupo, and it may not be I don't know, you don't approve who gets there, but the council do. They have a large say-so. So what I'm saying is that the people that's on this very important new group, because we're doing new things, so you say. I'm just saying that let these boards diversify and look like the community. Again, we vote for you, so you work for us, Mr. Finn, and let our words be heard loud and clear. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Okay, we'll close that item then. Thank you.
On to the regular calendar. Item 1 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding building code. A hearing has been held on this item already. Item 2 is a resolution authorizing an amendment and extension of the collective bargaining agreement between between the City of Long Beach and the Long Beach Civil Service Employees Association.
I'd like to move that we go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining issues.
I'll second that.
He hasn't presented it yet.
He just did.
Okay. You don't want to hear what Dan has to say? You seconded it? Okay. So we're going to, okay. Well, we know how it's going to go.
Voting to go into executive session for collective bargaining. Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora. President Finn.
Yes.
Okay, we are in executive session. For the folks that are watching online, this stream is going to end, and a new stream labeled Part 2 will come up and be available within the next 10 minutes.